I know a friend of mine, we were talking about parenting and things like that, and how oftentimes in the parenting world, people get really frustrated and triggered themselves when you say that if you are getting mad and angry at your kids, it's not because of your kids, it's about something in you. Like there's a trigger there for you. Hi, Carly. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
I know. It's been fun. I think you and I connected I think virtually through Jen Casey and then in person at a BBD James Wedmore event. It seems like everybody I keep talking, like introducing, I'm like, we met at James Wedmore event. We met at a James Wedmore event. I'm like, I've got to start making myself get to some other events other than just James Wedmore events. But I love all the people I've met through there. And I know you and I connected. And when we talked, we were like, man, there was just so much of the conversation that we were having that was like samey, like around business and around life and around different things. And so we were like, we've got to start connecting. And I remember I shared with Jen, I was like, oh yeah, Carly and I've been talking. She goes, man, I knew you two, I knew you two could connect and like get along, like whatever. So it's kind of fun to really be able to connect with you and now to have you on the podcast and to be able to share your expertise and knowledge and then see where this conversation goes.
It's so funny how many people I've met through James as well.
Yeah.
Just like when you say that, I mean, it's like the ultimate connector space. And it was really my first introduction to like the business world. So it makes total sense.
Yeah.
And the woo-woo world also. So
yeah.
It's a lot going on there. Yeah.
And I think because it's grown so big, like there's over 10,000 people in his BBD community. So, you think of like, that's 10,000 entrepreneurs all in one tight container and getting in person and all of those types of things. Like it's huge.
Totally. We end up with like very similar values, I think, from that too. So that's why we're all so connected.
Yeah. For sure. So I know today we're going to talk about all kinds of things, but before we do that, tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, that's a big question. So like,
what do you want to know?
Where do you live? How many kids do you have? What kind of car do you drive? No, I'm kidding. Like,
you don't want to know that part.
Really? Why do I not want to know?
Well, I drive a crappy, no, it's covered in pollen and it's a 2013 Volvo.
Okay.
I have 2 kids. One is 6.5, one is 4.5. I'm in Richmond, Virginia. I'm originally from New Jersey, lived in Florida, found myself back up here in Virginia because my husband is kind of a Virginia. He's from Northern Virginia, I guess it is. So Richmond is like a good middle spot. Yeah. Objectively good place to live. We like it.
How long have you been there?
About 6 years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself ever living anywhere else?
I mean, we both like love the West Coast, honestly. Colorado. I love spots in Colorado, in California. I think it's just a matter of like, for stability purposes, we really live here because of our families being relatively close. Not that it means all that much. Like we kind of had a way different vision of what we thought that would mean than what actually is like reality with like help and, our families, wanting to pitch in and stuff, that kind of thing. But I could definitely see myself living somewhere else at some point.
Yeah. Have you ever, okay, so I don't know. I mean, I know a friend of mine was like, I'm moving, I'm doing all this stuff because I think it's called astrocartography.
Oh.
But it's like where the astrological lines are, there's like certain planes of places that you're most aligned to live, I guess, based on astrology stuff. And she was telling me about this like a couple years ago and like actually is now moving to one of those areas because she was like the place that she was living was kind of one of her like dead zones, like stay away from zones, not dead zone, but like not a great spot for her. And so she's moving and she's like so lit up, so excited, so happy, whatever. And so I kept getting these ads recently on Instagram for an astrocartography thing. And I was like, I wonder if ChatGPT could tell me. I wonder if I could throw it into ChatGPT. So I did. I was like, here's like my birthday, my place, like whatever, like give me my astrocartography. And it was interesting, like San Diego and Denver were two of my top places. Like it said, these are where you're going to feel the most at home, that you're going to feel this, that, and the other thing. And I was like, that's so fascinating. And then there were certain ones that's like, stay away from this area. But it just kind of curious too, like where people are maybe magnetically drawn to, if those are places, I don't know if they would
That
fall
is
on
so
there.
interesting. No, I'm like immediately going to chat GBT mine because I
Yeah.
want to know. I love that stuff. I'm so curious if it matches what I just said, like the
Yeah.
Denver, the Colorado East or West Coast.
Uh,
I'm like an ocean. Like I grew up going to the beach and we had a place or whatever, like a condo. So I'm a very much a beach person, but really any nature, like mountains
yeah.
too. So
Yeah. Mine, I was gonna say I have to water. So like if I'm gonna be in the mountains or landlocked somewhere, it has to have a nice, good body of water. Like I cannot be without
exactly
water.
same,
So
100% same.
I'm like living in the desert. I could not live there. I could not. I
No.
could visit it, but I cannot. Like I love going to Sedona. I could visit it, but I will not ever be able to live there. So
No, I like literally need the water. I don't know what that is about, but I know some people are like because of their zodiac stuff, like
yeah,
they have like a fire sign, so they need to be near the water or whatever. I'm a air sign, so I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but
yeah. Like, I just like water.
yeah, I just want to float in the ocean all day. That's my
Yeah.
thing.
Well, this was a little bit like off what we were really going to chit chat and talk about, but I think it does kind of maybe talk a little bit about you, maybe discovering a little bit about yourself
Hmm.
and who you are, right? And I think that that's really been a big theme of some of these podcast episodes is like people really learning about who they are. And the more that they know about who they are, that impacts the way they interact with other people. I know you work a lot with parents and helping parents learn how to parent their kids and things like that. And a big part of that is us understanding and discovering who we are and how we show up and why we get so triggered. Like I know a friend of mine, we were talking about parenting and things like that, and how oftentimes in the parenting world, people get really frustrated and triggered themselves when you say that if you are getting mad and angry about at your kids, it's not because of your kids, it's about something in you. Like there's a trigger there for you. So I would love to know just a little bit about like what has that journey been like for you? One, as a psychologist and like as somebody who this is like your area of profession. This isn't just like I am just an expert in my parenting my own kids, but like I help other parents really do this like from a cognitive background, research, educational sort of perspective, and also a very personal experience too. So tell us,
Yeah,
open up there.
sure. Yeah. So I got into this because like you said, I've been a school psychologist. I was doing it for over 10 years. And I really got into it because of like, I knew I wanted to be in a helping profession. I love kids and it made sense to my brain, just the whole thing. It's very behaviorally based though, which is makes sense. I mean, you can't really do much in the school day with a kid. Like, you kind of need to look at the behavior and then act on that.
Yeah.
And so, kind of, I would say, even like my work with this, my interest in this area before parenting was really just even before I had kids, seeing the interactions between the adults, like the teachers and whatnot with the kids. And there was always just something in my brain, like even before I had kids, where like, this doesn't make sense a lot of the time. Um,
Yeah.
we're expecting a lot out of kids that like for example, you see, and I've worked in a lot of different settings, but if you see a teacher or a paraprofessional or whatever interacting with a kid who's like difficult, and I'm going to air quote that, and then they're like yelling at them to like calm down. And it's in my brain always kind of just sent off red flags of like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, we're expecting things out of kids that we can't even do ourselves. Like if you can't help a kid calm down without getting upset, like
Mhm.
that's hypocrisy. So that's kind of where it started. I would say like that seed was planted with like
Yeah.
this is weird. This seems wrong there. And then, of course, I had my own kids, and you will never truly understand anything about parenting unless you have your own kids, or in some way a caregiver long term to a child. And that just opened up a whole new thing for me. It cracked me open completely. Um, to the point where I believe, so I personally believe in like karma, and I believe in our kids choose us, we choose them. It's like a soul contract we're fulfilling here. And my son, my oldest, was definitely that for me. So from the moment he was born, he came into the world, 6 weeks, 7 weeks early. Just a traumatic start to his life and to my journey as a mother. Didn't sleep well, didn't eat well. Like, it was just pretty much everything that could be hard, was hard. And didn't have a lot of support. Me and my husband, we were in Florida at the time when we had him, which was nowhere near anybody. We were the first in our like friend group to have kids, so we were really just like on our own. And so after I kind of got through the haze of that like initial sleep deprivation trauma, like all that, we decided to have another kid. And so she came along. My son was 2, and it was at that point, I would say, when she was like around a year, he was turning like 3, when I just started to be like, oh my gosh, like this isn't getting easier.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you kind of are always looking for like, when is there going to be like a moment of
Yeah.
pause where I really drop into this and feel like I'm doing a good job, or like this is like I'm enjoying myself, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. You're not like just surviving.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So you have a vision of like what you think parenting and parenthood is going to be. And it just wasn't ever seeming to like, we weren't moving in that direction of that matching up. And so that was when I kind of realized that I had been dealing with, for sure, like postpartum anxiety, depression, like you name it. And then I just really that was when I discovered in myself that I do have ADHD. I'm totally undiagnosed until motherhood, which is a thing that happens where I realized that basically I could handle a lot, and I'd had my own little like ways of doing things that made it life manageable for me,
Mm-hmm.
until I then couldn't anymore. Like, there just becomes a tipping point where there's just,
Mm-hmm.
this is too much for me. And that was my kind of like burnout moment,
Mm-hmm.
when I realized like, oh shit, this isn't getting easier. And I'm a large part why.
Yeah.
And that's good to know that information. So I would say like knowing that about myself was helpful, and it didn't fix, or like really change anything in my day to day to know that, which is when I then went on a whole journey of my own self discovery, like you said. So it was really it's true that like this really is about, for me, like I believe motherhood for many people, including myself, is just a catalyst for personal transformation. Like, it's either like shit or get off the pot on your own life,
Yeah.
because you have people that rely on you to do that. So you can't just, cope anymore.
I have always said that like entrepreneurship and becoming a mother were the two most like refining things that you could ever do in your life, or like, I guess becoming a father probably too, but like it brings you to both of them, like bring out all of these like fears and insecurities and beliefs and ideas and like patterns of behavior and like ways of operating. And it like shifts you basically out of everything that felt safe and comfortable before, makes you face a whole new version of yourself, makes you like either, yeah, like melt and fall completely apart, or you rise to the occasion, or you discover what coping strategies or what tools you were using, or maybe the coping tools and strategies you had before are no longer working anymore. And so it sends you on this whole new discovery. It's like, it's such a fascinating journey for, I think, and then you throw a lot of us to both of them at the same time. Like, I became I like started my business when my third baby, like right shortly after I had my third baby. And I'm like, so you're in the throes of figuring out mom life and discovering who you are, and at the same time trying to build a business. And when I look back at those like early business days and like photos and pictures, and like I actually recently put the Google Photos widget on my phone, and so on the widget will pop up every day, and it'll show like 8 years ago on this day, or 5 years ago, like faces of May. It'll like have just these like montages that it puts together. So almost every day now lately, I've been clicking on it and looking at these old videos and old photos. And a lot of them are of those early days of motherhood, those early days of starting a business. And I look at it and I think, man, I had no idea what was possible, I think, at that point in time. I was just in that survival mode, but I had such hope. Like, I had such hope for more freedom, or to create that peace, or things like that. And even now, I look back at some of those photos and videos and I think, I do think I did a really great job of trying to savor the moments and like be present in the moment and in that season. And even with all of the amazing things that I did and all the tools that I did, it still sometimes feels like it wasn't enough. Like it doesn't feel good enough and things like that. So I think that it's this, I don't know. And like you said, we're always looking for that when is that moment that things are going to get easier. When are things going to get like feel like I'm not just surviving anymore. And now I'm at the point where I'm like, holy shit, my oldest is almost 14. Like we're almost done. We're almost done with this like parenting gig. And I think for me, this is a whole different conversation, but you have this feeling in those moments of like my entire life is raising kids, right? I think growing up, there was such an emphasis on like when I grow up and I have my kids and like that season of life of getting married, having kids, and being in that kid mom life season felt like that is my entire life. And to now be in that season and on the end of that season, it is a weird feeling. One, there's this like weird feeling of, wow, life is going so fast. But yet, that parent phase is really only a small blip of life.
Mhm.
And just that like dichotomy of like it is so intense and it's so hard, and you're in that survival phase. And yet it is such a short period of time. And yeah, it's like you want to do the most and the best for your kids, but it goes by so fast.
Yeah, it goes by so fast and so slow at the same time when you're in the
Yes,
beginning, right? At least in the
exactly.
beginning. And so, I mean, one thing, I think it was like a year ago, I started having those moments. Like it started to, so my kids are 4 and 6, so it starts to become a little bit less like survival.
Yeah.
And this thinking to myself of like, and this can be helpful or not helpful for some people, but for me, it was helpful of like, nothing lasts forever either way. Like the
Mm-hmm.
hard moments, they're like you said, these little kid moments, like it's a blip in our timeline. And then the things that are like good parts, right? Like the things to savor is like savor it. And at the end of the day, like really when we say like, oh, did I do good enough, or this is so hard, or am I doing this right, or whatever it is, like, or waiting for that moment of like, okay, are we good now? Like, is it
Yeah.
going to get any easier? A big part of it, honestly, for me is like accepting that like no,
Mm-hmm.
it's not. It's just, and it's accepting that, right? And it's
Yeah.
like, I'm going to savor though the moments that are good moments. And honestly, I think now too of like, it is so much less about what you're doing, like those little moments. Cause with little
Mm-hmm.
kids or even kids that are preteens or whatever, like there are every moments every day where it's hard and you don't know what to say and you don't know if you're doing a good job, and you get into like arguments and they have a problem and you don't know what to do and whatever it is. But at the end of the day, like this isn't it's a long game.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what kind of parent do I want? Do I want them to call me with their problems, or do I want them to think like there's no point,
Yeah.
or they don't want to understand or whatever it is. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
What do you feel like in your motherhood parenting journey, and also, in the work that you do now, what is the biggest lesson you've learned?
It's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
See, those large scale questions, I
I
struggle with
know.
that. What's the biggest lesson I've learned? Is that the
Yeah.
question? I think it's around my own, it really has to do with me at the end of the day, like regardless of parenting, but parenting is what made me realize it. And that is really just, how do I say it? It's around like my worth isn't tied to anything external.
Yeah.
And that includes my kids. And that
Yeah.
includes like their reactions to me, other people's judgments of of what I do and how I do it. Like that is really at the end of the day it. And when I can come from that place, like the reason it's the biggest, most important lesson is that's the only way that like anything I'm doing and that I'm able to be authentic in. And I
I
really think that like, sorry, go ahead.
No, you finish. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, for me, with the whole like cause of what I'm doing and my mission and helping mothers, like that's really what it's about. Is at the end of the day, like what does breaking, cycles mean? People talk about, and it's like that's it. Like, yes, it's about the bigger T trauma too, of like we don't want to yell and traumatize our kids in that way and stuff. But it's about them seeing a parent that is fully like owned their own worth and power and like authenticity,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And in that, in the weaknesses too. Like when
Exactly.
like our kids don't need us to be infallible. Like there are going to be those moments, right? But like, what do we do with them and like, how do we rectify them? And I think honestly, I don't even remember who it was at this point in time. It might have actually been one of my like babysitting nanny people, like a daycare person that had said to me at one point in time that like my motherhood would forever change the moment I realized that I had no control over the outcome of what my kids become or how they behave or like something along that lines of like essentially like when I like kind of in that same sense of like that worthiness that you had of like when I don't attach my worth as a mom to the outcome of what my kids perform and like how they are like they are their own unique individuals and like my job is only to help provide the experience and container and space for them but ultimately it's their own journey that they're going on and that when I could release that attachment that my inherent worth is not related to theirs that she was like your motherhood will forever change and I think it's kind of in that same vein of what you're talking about there of like your worthiness is not tied to how they perceive you or what they do or what anybody else perceives of you or worth it's like your inherent worthiness is your inherent worthiness and that's the journey you're on and how they respond to that is their own thing too and I think I mean that was the take I got out of it in that point in time of like wow I think as moms we do have this belief or this feeling of like we have to control or we have to, like when our kids make bad, poor decisions, or they do. I think now, especially for me, getting to the place where I'm like, I've got a teenager and I've got kids that are doing things that are independent of me. Like I'm not there. Like when they're little, it's easy to be like, no, no, don't touch the socket. Like don't touch the outlet. Like don't get there. Like, or don't, like, you feel like you can control their worlds and now it's like I don't have that control. It's like I have to release the control and let them make those decisions themselves and know like there are still times where I'm like, man, what did I do wrong? Like why are my, like why do you guys fight so much? Like what did I do wrong? But I think that it's not about them, it's about me and like that journey that I'm on and like that learning there. And like you said, helping them break those cycles of generational things. And it comes from me doing the work and being willing to do the work and being open, I think, for them to see that. I think I will 1000% admit that I am not the best parent in the world. And like there are days when I get so frustrated and I'm so angry and days I'm like,
Yep.
why did I do that? Like why did I yell at them about that? Like why was I so frustrated? Like why couldn't I be more calm? Why couldn't I be more patient? Like right? Like those are sometimes the thoughts that run through. But then I also in the back of my mind I'm like I want them to see that that's normal too and that I can come back from that. And so like one of the things I remember from very get-go is like anytime I yelled, I'm like, I always want to close that relationship or like close that rupture and go
Hmm.
to them and be like, I am so sorry that I yelled at you for that. Like that wasn't something I should have yelled at you for. I was feeling frustrated because of XYZ does not give me the excuse or the right to have yelled at you like I did. And I apologize for that. And like, here's where we can maybe do things differently next time and whatnot. So I am trying, right? I think you're probably in the same boat. Like we're all gonna have these like, I didn't do it well moments
Yeah.
and
I
just
mean, that
honoring
right
that that's
there
gonna
is,
happen.
yeah, no, sorry. That right there, though, is like, I mean, if you're not apologizing at least like, usually I'd say probably on average once a day to
Yeah.
your kids for something, right? For some reaction that you had, like, that's the difference
Mm,
between, I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't remember ever really being apologized to or repaired after. It was kind of just like, let's not talk about that and pretend it didn't happen. And then, like, we'll go get ice
yeah.
cream maybe or something. I don't know. But really, what it comes down to is that. And I think it's interesting too, when you were talking, what came up for me, I was thinking about just like what you were saying about you trying your best and like them seeing that. And really, that control piece of like, the old way is like the mark of a good parent is controlling our kids and what they do and the way that they're perceived. And oh no, do they do this? Like, and we have that very much wired into us. Like,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the triggers come from that reaction of like, holy shit, they're doing this thing. How does that look? What does that mean about me? this is not good, right? And it's a deeply wired thing, almost like
Yeah.
biologically, we're like, we're going to get kicked out of the tribe if our kids act that way almost,
Yeah.
and that's the difference. And so I think a lot of times parents, like the difference between our generation and previous generations is like, it can almost look like there's a fine line between like gentle parenting. I hate that term, but like
Mm.
that of like respectful, conscious parenting, and like neglect, like just letting
Yeah.
it go. Like whatever they do is fine. And I don't need to have that role. And I think the real difference is that previous generations, it was like the focus was on the kid, controlling the kid, what they did, right? That's how
Yeah.
the mark of a parent. And now it's instead more so, what are they doing? What is that triggering in me? And then
Hmm.
going and doing the work on that, right? It's like you're not
Hmm.
doing any less work now, like don't get
Yeah.
me wrong. We're not just like sitting back and whatever happens, happens. It's like, no, instead of reacting to what they do or don't do, I'm looking at my reaction and then working it on myself and figuring out like, what the fuck is that about?
Totally.
And like, what can I do? And then when I work on myself, that automatically is going to change the dynamic and the trajectory of your child's relationship with you and the way that they see the world, you know? So it's very much an inner process.
Yeah, well, I was going to say even the positive ones, right? Like that's something I've learned, especially like in business, is that the attachment that we place on outcomes in our business is, we have to look at the positive ones and the negative ones. Like how excited did we get when it went the way we wanted it to versus how like frustrated were we get when it didn't go the way. And it just made me think like this week we were at the baseball game and it was little league day, so like all of my son's little league friends were all there, and like there's a whole bunch of people we know, and one of them was my daughter's teacher. And so at one point, like she's great, she's taught two of my kids, and I love her and she's amazing, and we see her at baseball all the time, so it's like not weird for me to go talk to the teacher at the baseball game. But she was saying like, oh my gosh, Britta, like this and that. She was like just raving on Britta, like how amazing she was, like how kind she is, like she's always including everybody. She's like, she's the one that if she sees like somebody on the fringes, like not getting the attention or whatever, she's like, she'll go over there and like hug her and like bring her in. Like she's doing all these things. And I was like, oh my gosh, that makes me feel so good. Like, because she's not like that at home. Like at home, she's like fighting and irritable and like, Mom, my water bottle is right there. Can you hand it to me? And I'm like, girl, get your own freaking water bottle. So there's this like, but as you were saying that, I had this moment of like, so what is that saying about me? That hearing all these really positive things about my daughter made me feel so good, right? Like, what is not the trigger? Like, there's not a trigger there, but like, what is it internally? Like, a people pleasing or a, like, that's one of the ones like I've never thought I've been a people pleaser. Like, not that I don't think I'm a people pleaser, but like that's not been one of those people like things that I like identify with of like I'm a people pleaser and like like let me see. But it definitely is coming up. Like I even recorded a podcast episode the other day, and after I like listened back through, I think I told you, I was like I listened back through it. I was like, wow, I did not realize how much people pleasing I just put off in that, like in the sense of like where the lessons that I was sharing that I learned, they were all related to some sort of people pleasing and external kind of validation. And so even this, like listening to you say that about like recognizing those things that it's bringing up in us, it's like they could be the good things too. Of like, where are we feeling like, oh, that just made me feel really good that my daughter is doing really great with all these things. It's like that is her projecting me out into society, and like the people's perceptions of that is now being reflected on me, and it's like that people pleasing tendency kind of coming back again. So it's just interesting that you brought that up, and like thinking about that, like where can we start looking at how we're responding to both negative and positive things all the way around.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
really, really interesting too, because you said you're asking and I'm like, I don't know why. And then I'm like, oh, well, there's a lot of reasons, but there's the more like uh generational thing of, we were probably, I don't know about you, but I was like, and a lot of people I work with, we were praised on our accomplishments, right?
Mhm.
Or what we did, we got good grades. we did this, we were polite, we whatever. And
Yeah.
that was like a reflection of us. And that's what we got. That's how we earned our worth and our
Yeah.
accolades, so to speak. So there is, I think, some of that just conditioning wise. It's like we see that, we're like, that's good. That's, but that's something to look at, sure. On the other end, it's also, I think at the end of the day, I mean, I know at the end of the day that our main concern is with our kid as a parent is our kids' happiness and their growth and like how well they're going to feel, in the world and what they're going to basically their emotional wellness, right?
Yeah.
And so I think there's parts of that when you hear, oh, my kid is doing a good job at school or they're well liked or whatever, that's totally normal and healthy to go like, good.
Yeah.
Like none of
Yeah.
us walk around wanting our kid to be like the outcast or like the constant disruptor or anything like that. To a
Yes.
degree, like some of that's personality stuff. It's interesting that you say that though, too, because I was thinking of like just the other day, like my husband was saying to me, our 6-year-old was at it playing a game with some adults and other kids. And like, we're still not, it took a long time for us to get through the stage of like being really upset about losing, like
Oh
him, not
yeah.
us, like crying. And like, so he's
I
like, I
have
was
one
over
like
our
that
friend's
too.
house. Yeah. So
Yeah.
he was like, I was over our friend's house and they have the kid is same age. They played a game of Uno and their kid, like didn't win and lost it. And my husband was just saying, like, he's like sitting there, like having a moment of like, wow, stuff would have been a lot easier had I just recognized that, like, it's normal and all kids do this, and it's not just ours. And I think a lot of times when I find myself in either of those situations, like a positive or, I mean, usually it's the negative because of the negativity bias, right? But like, usually when you're in a situation where you're triggered in some way or you're noticing, wow, my reaction to this is like strong, it has something to do with you feeling like, what does this mean about me? Right? Like it's always like you said, like, what does this mean about me? And if you follow that rabbit hole, like you'll always get to a lesson for yourself, which I think is really, really cool. And it, like, my point is, it almost has nothing to do with your kid ever, right? Just like literally anybody else that you interact with in the world, any trigger you have, positive or negative, like it has very little to do with them.
Yeah.
And so if you can, with parenting, like if you're like resting in that knowledge of like, they can do something great, they can do something that is like triggers me emotionally and is like a big problem. They can scream, they can have a tantrum, they can, do whatever. You can follow that and find something about yourself that you can work on and like heal and address. And that's like the most sustainable possible parenting
Yeah.
style.
Totally. I think it's just like one of those things. I with business and with life and personal growth and all the things, I have grown to be in this place like this. My word of this year has been contentment, of how can I be fully content with where I'm at right now and also know that I'm growing and I'm on a journey of continued growth. Because I think for a long time, I was like, how do I become a better parent? How do I become a better entrepreneur? How do I like be more whole? Like, how do I let go of these triggers? How do I become less triggered? How do I, whatever? Like, there was this constant evolution of like, something in me needs to be fixed. Like, I am broken and I have to be fixed. And I think it was even just that brokenness belief that kept me broken. And I feel like there's this balance, right, of understanding I'm doing my best and I'm going to be content with where I am today, and also put myself in places, programs, work with coaches, do whatever to continue to grow my skills and to heal the parts of me that need to be healed and like become aware of what these triggers are. But it's also this element of like fully owning and being okay with exactly where I'm at in the mess of where it is right now and knowing that it's like completely whole and perfect as it is, you know? And I think that's a really big rustle I've seen in business, but I do think it kind of relates over to like as a parent too. Like, I am doing the best with the tools that I've got and I'm okay with that right now, but I also know that there's other tools I can always acquire and I'm willing to be open to what those are as the future unfolds and things. I don't know if you have any
Totally.
thoughts on that, but I do feel like there's this balance of like feeling like we're never good enough and we're not parenting well enough, like, and we get so down on ourselves when we lose it and we get triggered or we feel frustrated or whatever. And at the same time, that's part of the journey. I don't know.
No, I agree with
Yeah.
you. And I think it's the overlap is uncanny
Yeah.
between business and parenting. And I mean, those are the two that are at the forefront of my mind also. So, but I think it could overlap in a lot of different ways. But I think it comes down to like, how much shame are you going to let yourself get into about it? Honestly, it's almost like the concept in business, right? Of like failing forward and letting like failing as much and as you can as quickly as possible to learn as much as you can and grow as much as you can.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that is to like be able to like let the shame go
Totally.
and recognize your like it's humanity, right? And there's some weird thing that we've as humans, I don't know where this evolved from, because I mean survival, right? Like why do we need to be the best?
Yeah.
But essentially, yeah, I think it has a lot to do with the shame piece
Totally.
and like this just general like low key shame we carry around of like our basic like human
Mm-hmm.
condition.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying I'm perfect at it. I still face it a lot. Like I think depending on a lot of different factors, like it's going to be deeper in some than others. But I do think that the level of shame also correlates to the level of like possibility for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are people walking around with no shame and they're doing like mediocre stuff, like there's people in business that are like that whole I forget the theory name, but the thing of like, what is it? It's where you are doing something not well.
Yeah, I forget something fallacy. I forget the.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the fallacy of basically like you're confident in what you're doing and you're not worried about it and you're not doing that great, but on the outside, you have the success that you want. Whereas people that are more skilled and have a higher like potential for things and like a big just different potentiality carry around more shame about not being perfect.
Yeah. It's
And I
like
think it
the more you know, the more you like the more you know, the more you doubt what you don't know.
that's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Like you. Yeah. The more that you're aware of what could be, you become more doubtful of what you don't know. Like I don't know. If that makes sense.
No,
Yeah. I
exactly.
do. I think it's like what you brought up with the shame. I think that's huge. I think it is true. Like there's a shame there. I think there's also just like our society's like wrapping around like a fear of failure, right? Like what you talked about is like failing hard, failing fast, failing quickly helps you learn and grow. And yet for so many of us, like failure is not something that we've been conditioned into believing that is good to go into. Like, even my kids go to a school that talks about failure and like failure, just like they talk about just mistakes, like it's just learning, like mistakes are just learning and all that. And like really conditioning them. But even then, I still see there's like such a high expectation for them of their own accord to like perform really well or to do it really well and like unwilling to make mistakes and things like that. And I think that plays out in business and in parenting. Like we don't want to make mistakes. Like it's either money or livelihood or people's perceptions of us or like whatever. Like there's a lot on the line with our kids, with our business, with everything. There's this fear of like there's so much on the line, but yet it is that relationship to fear and that relationship to shame that really is the biggest thing that makes the big like transmorphs all of that.
100%. I've noticed
Yeah.
like in parenting, something that I noticed a pattern with myself. It's just this like fear of, and I guess it applies to really everything, like your fear of inadequacy, of not
Mhm.
performing, of not doing a good enough job is literally in most cases the only thing that is actually making you inadequate in any way.
Mhm.
Right? Like
Mhm.
your fear of that, it's an illusion. And so if you're going to base your actions and all your beliefs and thoughts upon this like perceived inadequacy in something,
Totally.
you're going to take way different actions and be totally different than if you were somebody that was like, yeah, I have imperfections and I'm a human, so I
Yeah.
fuck up
Yeah.
and we move on.
Yeah, totally. So I think it was your post. I actually commented. You were like you posted something about, something so crazy that your kids say to you that makes you just lose it. But it was the same day that I was literally like sitting at a stoplight and I look over and as I look over the car in this right next to me has like a 1 or 2 year old walking around the back seat. No car
So bad.
seat, no seatbelt, no nothing. The driver is buckled in while this 1 or 2 year old is literally like jumping up and down, walking around the back seat. And I had this moment of like, okay, those moments that I feel like I'm effing it up as a parent, it's exactly what you just talked about, like the awareness of like all the parts and all the healing and all the emotional regulation and all the triggers and like all these things, like all of that knowledge I am now feeling like there's days where I'm like, I feel so inadequate and like I'm failing as a parent because I know all of these things. But that dude in the car next to me, he probably has no idea about any of that as he's letting his 1-year-old walk around the back seat without a seatbelt on, not buckled in, not seated, nothing. Like just that awareness, right? Of like the more that we know about emotional regulation, the more we know about triggers, the more we know about cycles, the more we know about parts, the more we know about all this, the greater that we feel maybe inadequate and like we're not doing a really great job. Yeah.
It's a slippery slope. It really is. And
Yeah.
that's my point is like, I see, and like when I work with women, like just the type of women we work with are people that have a lot of knowledge, very smart, gather a lot of information, really care about how they're being in the world. And it can be this like very fine line where if you don't also look at the things you're doing well, like what's it all for? I forget, I think, well, actually, I don't forget. I'm going to credit Dr. Alex of Zesteam, of Megan and Alex. She says this thing all the time that I've now stolen is like self-awareness is only self-awareness, or self-awareness without seeing the positive is just like bullying yourself. And that's just so true because how many of us walk around like, yeah, I know. And then you're like, but I did this shitty thing. And you're like, yeah, you know, though, right? Like, you know why you did it. So why are you beating yourself up about it?
Yeah.
You
That
know?
is so good.
Yeah. I butchered it, but she
That's
says it.
okay. I butcher quotes all the time, but at least as long as we get the essence of it there.
You gotta get the
Yeah.
essence and yeah,
I know we could keep talking. And this is
totally.
so good. I think it is. I think leaving it on that awareness of like, oftentimes when we are feeling like we're beating ourselves up the most, it's like we are doing the best jobs. Like we are doing the best with the skills and the tools that we have available. And that should be good enough. And like finding that inherent worthiness. Like I think that going back to that, like learning and leaning into that is huge. And just knowing no matter what mess ups I make today, it does not change the connection, the relationship that I'm desiring with my kids. And it does not change my inherent worthiness. And that if I rest in that, like I think recently I've been reading a book about like that self love. And the more self love we have for ourselves, the more that we're able to give to others and just having that compassion for ourselves. And I think that comes back to that worthiness kind of idea too of like when we feel like we're worthy of loving ourselves, and that's what's going to make us worthy and or like feel like we're worthy to give love and give love unconditionally, and that's going to just have this ripple effect out into the world. So I think we could keep talking forever and keep sharing, but I would love for people to know where they can get in touch with you, how they can learn more about what it is that you do. Maybe even just share a little bit like how I know we talked a lot about like kind of what you do on kind of the certs, but like the certs, what is that word?
That's a fun new kids thing the kids are saying these days, I guess.
I don't know. I mean, the Skibbity Rizzler, Ohio. I don't know.
I don't know. My kids aren't there yet, but I know
Oh
you're deep in it. So
gosh. They even say on the way to school, there is a song. It's called Brizzler. So if you
no.
go find it, I forget which song it they spoof it off of. It's like it's a common song. I forget the song it was, like the melody, but the whole thing is all of the kids' phrases and slang and stuff now. And so it's like, it is hilarious. It's called Rizzler. Go look it up. But it's like
God.
Skibbity Rizzler, Ohio. And like my kids were dying laughing in the car this morning listening to it. And I was like, what are we listening to? What is this? But the certs,
Weird out there.
I'm gonna tell them that that's one of the new words they've got. But anyway, tell everybody a little bit about who it is you serve, what you do, and where they can find you.
Yeah, sure. So I mainly help highly sensitive moms. I help guide them through my signature motherhood alchemy process. And we work through that together in multiple different ways. You can work one on one with me or in my group program. There's even a self paced option. So it's something for everybody. I hang out mainly on Instagram right now. So it's at I am Carly Ely. I also have a podcast, which we're in a rebranding process. As of right now, it's called The Same Shit, Different Mom Podcast, but that might be changing soon. But if you look it up now and follow me, then you'll be there for all that rebranding fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Carly, for coming on. This was great. I had so much fun chatting with you today.
Thank you for having me. This was awesome.